In 2023, I've gone to the movies more than I have in any other year in my life. And that really is because a lot of very interesting movies came out this year. And I did want to see as many as possible on the big screen to get that full, theatrical experience. Now, with this list that I'm going to focus on, this is just my personal favorite movies of 2023. I'm not trying to speak for anybody else. I'm not worrying about what the critics had to say. This is what I enjoyed the most from this particular year. I do want to start things off with some honorable mentions. I'm going to get to a top 10 list, and I'll say it wasn't super easy to put this list together. But again, I do want to start off with some honorable mentions, movies that just didn't quite make my personal top 10. 2022 was a phenomenal year for horror movies, even with a couple of duds in there, some disappointments. It didn't matter. There was still a lot of great horror movies. So I pretty much figured that this year would not be able to live up to what was done last year. And I think that pretty much was the case, but there were still some gems. And I do think that Evil Dead Rise is one of them. This movie pretty much gave me what I want from an Evil Dead movie. There was, some creative gore in there. There was some humor as well. I think it pretty much worked overall. I do wish that it dug into the lore a little bit more there, and also even with the family, I think they set the family up pretty well, but I wanted more out of that as well. Maybe some, not like a strong heavy-handed message, but just a little bit something more out of the family basically in the long run. But still, this was a very entertaining movie, and I absolutely love the peephole shot as well. That was definitely a standout moment. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, I've never been like a big D&D fan, but when I first saw this trailer, it just looked like a simply entertaining movie, and that's what it turned out to be. The casting was very unique. It's not what I expected from the cast, that they put together, but I do think each individual worked as, they fit their character well, and then the dynamic between them worked also. So yeah, this was a fun movie for me, just not like a standout top 10 movie though. Thanksgiving is another horror standout for me. I will say, though, that the movie does feel like it should have come out some years ago, especially with the big focus on the insanity of Black Friday. I think that has died down some. I'm not saying it's completely gone because I know, some negative things do still happen on Black Friday. But yeah, it feels like the movie should have come out earlier. But regardless of that, this was an entertaining movie. I do think that the characters were more interesting than you typically would get in a horror movie. And what really excites me about this is the potential for the future of the franchise, because I think there's a lot of different directions they could take it. We could have the killer return, we could have a copycat, could be a combination of things. Who knows where it's going to go. But this movie, even though it took a long time to finally happen, I think it was worth the wait. I was very, very entertained by it. Missing is what's referred to as a screen capture movie because the majority of the movie you are actually watching somebody's computer screen as this character actually tries to figure out what happened with her mother. She's, hence the title Missing. Her mother is missing. I've watched other screen capture movies, and this one just really kept me engaged because of the mystery. They just kept on having these twists and turns. I know that some of it kind of pushes that realm of believability, but regardless, it kept me very much engaged. I really did enjoy the viewing experience. And I'm kind of into these screen capture movies. I like the Unfriended movies. I do think the first one is better than the second, though. Searching, I think, is made by the same filmmakers that made Missing. That one is entertaining. The Den, I feel like I never hear anybody talk about The Den, but that is worth a watch. It kind of has a horror angle to it, as most of these screen capture movies do. And when it comes to screen capture movies, The Host, or just Host, excuse me, is one that definitely stands out as well. This movie is less than an hour because it's like the length of a Zoom call. They actually use Zoom in a very creative way. So if you never checked out Host, that is worth a watch. And these other movies that I mentioned as well, if you're interested in screen capture at all, I think they are worth checking out. The writer, director, Alexander Payne, and Paul Giamatti, the lead actor of The Holdovers, they had teamed up previously for the movie Sideways, which is one of my personal favorites out of any genre of movies. So it was kind of cool to see them team up again for The Holdovers. Now, I did not go see this in theater. I did wait for it to hit streaming, and then I did go ahead and just purchase it instead of renting it. So I do actually own this movie digitally, at least. I did enjoy the movie overall, but I feel like it took a while to kind of click for me to really see what the themes were and where the movie was headed. So I did enjoy it overall. I just want to say it's like one of my personal favorites for the year. I know some critics absolutely love this movie. Some people call it a masterpiece. Some people say it's the favorite of the year. And I get that because there are a lot of positives with the movie. But for me, like I said, it just took a while to click for me. So that's why I wouldn't put it in my top 10. But it is worth a watch. And there is some clever dialogue throughout. Now, the most recent movie that I've seen from the time of this recording is the musical version of The Color Purple, which I'm not big into musicals, but I did decide to go check this out, especially to show support for such an amazing cast. And I think they did a great job. There's a lot of good singing, of course, some beautiful voices. There's some really nice dance choreography, just a lot of talent on display. But it does have some of those negatives, I guess you could say, that come along with musicals at times. There were a couple of musical numbers where I felt like it just wasn't pushing the plot forward necessarily, and some kind of create some awkward moments too as well, especially when you have characters kind of standing around just watching somebody else sing. But overall, this is a beautiful movie. I do feel like it's more of a companion piece to the original movie, where it's like you won't get as much out of it if you have not seen the original, even though I think most people have seen the original movie. But yeah, the narrative is not as strong in this version, but again, it is a beautiful movie. It is worth checking out. And now I'm going to get into my top 10 favorite movies of 2023. When I think about a movie that I would revisit, a movie that I'm looking forward to in terms of franchise potential, definitely am going to go with Megan. This movie, I think, it has some cheesiness to it. It does have some silliness to it, but it's very intentional. They did go for satire. And what impresses me about the movie is that they were able to do the satire and the silliness, but then also bring in the horror elements and bring in some emotion as well. I was very surprised by the relationship between the main character and the girl that she's had to take in, her niece. So yeah, it's just it really played out very well to me. I think they accomplished what they were going for, and they managed to make this movie more significant than just the memes that came from it based upon the trailer, the dancing of Megan. It went beyond that, and like I said, I'm looking forward to see where they go with this franchise. Now, I did enjoy the first Creed movie. It took me a while to check out Creed 2 because I was like, why are they bringing in Drago already? Drago's son. I felt like they probably should have saved that for a third movie, but I did finally check out Creed 2 on streaming, and it highly impressed me. I really did enjoy that movie, so that did get me hyped to check out Creed 3. And I think that Michael B. Jordan did a great job of making the character of Adonis Creed stand apart from Rocky, to stand on his own too. Now, it was a little bit odd in the movie, there's moments where it felt like Rocky really should have been there. But regardless, I think, like I said, Michael B. Jordan did a great job with directing this movie, and also his acting within it. And, Jonathan Majors, we know his current situation, which is very unfortunate, but he definitely did his job in this movie. He gave a great performance. I really did like the dynamic between the characters. It was very emotional. And I think it also sets up for, even more potential moving forward with this franchise, which I think Michael B. Jordan does want to continue with it. And I'm for it. I think he did enough with this movie to justify it continuing. At number 8, I have John Wick 4. And I've really enjoyed this franchise. I still think that the third one is my favorite in the franchise, and then followed by the first, but I would put John Wick 4 after that. The second movie I wasn't especially crazy about, but even that one has this entertainment value to it. But yeah, John Wick 4 was a great time at the theater. I especially love the action sequences in Paris, the stunt work with the cars, and then also the shootout with the shotgun. I think it's the Dragon's Breath ammo that was used there. Very creative. I like how it took influence from different things, not just other movies, but also from video games as well there. So amazing camera work, amazing stunt work, mixing in the visual effects very well. And it's a beautiful movie, absolutely a beautiful movie. There is some silliness here and there, things that I was not super crazy about, like when he's fighting in the club and like people are still dancing around him. That was a bit silly there, but I did like how this movie brought in some more characters. It kind of fleshed out the world even more. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else is done with this franchise. Hopefully we'll see some spin-off movies because there's so much potential still with this franchise. So yeah, John Wick 4 was definitely entertaining. Now, it should be no surprise that number 7 here is on my list, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I actually recently watched this again, and this movie, in terms of animation, has got to be one of the best ever. It's just so impressive how they blended so many different art styles together, and I just can't even imagine like all the work that went into this. Absolutely a beautiful movie. Now, what kind of holds it down for me, some why it's not higher up on my list, is because the story is incomplete. We all know that this is not a complete story, whereas the first movie, could stand on its own. That's not what we have here. It does feel like, an incomplete story. So that does bring it down a little bit for me, but I am excited for that third entry. I do hope they take their time and, make sure that movie is as beautiful as this one is. I'm all on board for that. Now, at number 6, I have Blackberry. This is another movie that I did not actually see in theater. I'm not even sure if it played in my area, but I did check this out on streaming, and I was very entertained by it. I found it to be so interesting. And you all, I know when it comes to movies like this that are based on real life, it's not 100% accurate. I don't think that's even possible necessarily. But Blackberry, like, it was a very interesting story, and I think that the leads did an amazing job. You know, these actors are mainly known for comedy. It's Glenn Howerton and Jay Baruchel, I think is his name. They're mainly known for comedy, but they did a great job, you know, with this dramatic acting, especially Glenn Howerton. Like, he's just a beast in that role. So it was very entertaining. This is a movie that I will revisit. I've already watched it twice, and I'll definitely go back and check it out again. At number 5, I have the Ironclaw, which is a tragedy. There's no way to avoid that. I mean, that really is what this movie comes down to. It is a tragedy because the story of the Von Erichs is a tragedy. There's so much tragedy within that family. It can be a tough watch, but I will say I feel like the director didn't go overboard and like indulge in the tragedy behind this family. There's a lot of heartfelt moments, a lot of very genuine moments between the brothers, and I think the actors were so committed. They did a great job with that. They transformed themselves physically, especially Zac Efron, who like hulked up for this movie. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, he did a great job as well with the physicality. I don't know all of the lead actors, but like I said, these guys were very committed, and they made it feel like a real family. They did such a great job with that. And this movie also very much respects professional wrestling. You know, they treated it like a craft, you know, an art that does take a lot of commitment, and it does take a physical toll. So that all around, like, if you're a wrestling fan, I think this movie is just an easy watch. It's definitely worth a watch. At number 4, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Even though this movie has its share of issues, I still was very much entertained by it. It's not my favorite in the trilogy of the movies. Volume 2 is still my personal favorite, especially because I'm such a big fan of the character Yondu, who was heavily focused on in that movie. But still, they did a lot of things right with this particular movie. The backstory with Rocket was so well done. I definitely got quickly attached to those other characters, you know, from his past. And that was very heartbreaking, of course, to see what happened with them. And just, you know, the focus on animal cruelty was surprising. I didn't expect that, you know, for them to go that deep with something, but it worked. You know, it did add a lot of heart to the movie. Like I said, there are some characters in the movie that kind of get wasted. Honestly, you know, they're not really used to their full potential. And I would even say Adam Warlock was not implemented very well. But still, there's so much in the movie that does work for me that I just had to put this up kind of high on my list, you know, in the top half of the list, because this is just a great movie when it comes down to it for me personally. And I think that the villain also was a standout. He did survive. They didn't make that very obvious in the movie. He actually did survive, but I don't know if we'll see him return or not. But yeah, I think he was the element that worked. And like I said, I feel like there were a lot of elements that really worked within this movie. Probably my biggest surprise of the year was Godzilla -1. I started to hear some hype about it, you know, once the movie, you know, released. You know, people were saying that it's a really good movie, and it's not just a good Godzilla movie. It really is, in general, just a good movie. Normally with kaiju movies, you kind of just sit there and you kind of, you know, wait through the human story. You wait for more kaiju action to come onto the screen. This movie was not like that. The human story was actually very strong, and it also, you know, implemented some things about Japanese history that I was not familiar with. I found that to be very interesting. So Godzilla -1, it really works on a lot of different levels, and it made Godzilla scary again. That was a big success for this movie. So yeah, Godzilla -1 was amazing. If you haven't seen that movie, definitely make sure you check it out. And the director is already talking about following up on it. I hope as he follows up that he kind of keeps that heart to the movie, you know, keep the human characters at the center and important to it. But we'll see what happens with it moving forward. But regardless, this movie is excellent. At number 2, I have Oppenheimer, which, you know, some people that know me might have expected me to put this at number 1. There is one movie that I enjoyed a bit more than this, but Oppenheimer, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. I think anybody that's interested in filmmaking definitely needs to take a close look at this movie, the things that Christopher Nolan was able to do with it. Cillian Murphy is amazing in the lead and has a lot of great support. In fact, you have a lot of really talented actors that show up for small parts, and that just shows how respected Christopher Nolan is. And Robert Downey Jr. is amazing in this movie. I'd be really surprised if he doesn't end up with any acting accolades based off of this movie. But so much of this movie is well done. And even though it's a long movie, you know, it's around 3 hours, or I think just beyond 3 hours, it actually did not feel that way to me. I know for a lot of people, they said that they felt like towards the end of the movie, it kind of dragged some after we actually get the actual test of the bomb. For me, I was still very much engaged though from beginning to end. And you know, after I saw this movie, I really wanted to go back to it and check it out again. I didn't make it back to the theater to see it in theater again because there was just so much, you know, so many other movies coming out and everything. But yeah, really did enjoy this movie. I do own it on Blu-ray now, thanks to a friend. I will be checking it out again very soon. Just such a well-made movie, and I think it is one of Christopher Nolan's best. Even though I really enjoyed Oppenheimer, and for a while I really was thinking that this was going to be my number one for the year, there ended up being another movie that stuck with me even more, and that is Talk to Me. So yeah, I had to put Talk to Me at number one because I enjoyed this movie so much. And really, when I first saw the trailer, I didn't know what to think of it. It looked like it might end up being kind of run-of-the-mill horror, and there was a little bit of hype around it, but there's always hype around horror. Everybody wants to call every horror movie the scariest thing ever, so of course I didn't pay that any mind, and I didn't see it in the theater. I did finally end up watching it on streaming, and literally the moment that this movie ended, I wanted to run it back to the very beginning and watch it again. That's how much I enjoyed this movie. The performances are so well done. I really think the actors, they felt so natural. A lot of times when you see, you know, especially young people in horror movies, they feel like stereotypes. They just don't feel genuine, and these characters very much felt genuine. It made me care about the characters, and that's what made it tough to watch at times. Not because of the gore. The gore doesn't really bother me so much, but it's just the fact that I didn't want to see these characters get hurt. I actually did care about them. I thought the premise was very interesting. I'm not going to say too much about the actual plot because if you haven't seen this movie, I think you should check it out. But yeah, this movie was just so well done in so many ways. The acting is good. The music choices are good. The editing is really good. So many great things about this movie. It is definitely worth checking out. So yeah, that's why this one stayed as my number one. Still got a lot of love for Oppenheimer, but for 2023, Talk to Me is my absolute favorite movie of the year. So that is it. Those are my favorite movies for this year, 2023. And now, of course, I want to hear from you all. What were your personal favorite movies of 2023? And you all, I know that you probably disagree with my list. I expect that, actually. I don't think anybody would have the exact same list that I do. And y'all, that's okay. It's okay that we disagree. It's okay that you like some other movies more than I did, you know, and it's okay that I like some movies that maybe you weren't into, you know, whatever it may be, whatever the case is. I really hope that people will start to realize that it's okay for us to think differently. And if you disagree with somebody, you don't have to attack that person. You know, just share your own thoughts. You know, what were your personal favorites? Hopefully you'll respect my opinion, and I definitely will respect your opinion, because at the end of the day, these are just opinions. We don't have to agree with each other. It's all in fun. You know, when it comes down to it, movies are entertainment. So like I said, I really want to hear from you. What were your favorite movies of 2023? I really appreciate everybody that took the time to check out this video. Thank you so much for that. I know this is not my usual content. Many years ago, I did used to like do movie reviews on my channel, but there's only so much time in the day. Basically, I just don't have time to do reviews like I would like to. So that's why I do some on some of my social media accounts. I just do quick written reviews. I did used to enjoy doing those videos, but like I said, just don't really have the time for that. But again, thank you all so much for taking the time to check out this particular video. I look forward to reading your comments, and I will talk to you all again real soon.